Hello and welcome to Jessie James Beads. My name is Jem and I'm here today to give you greetings from the Overlook Hotel. The September 2023 Magical Mystery Bead Box is launched, and today I want to share with you this gorgeous drop necklace in sumptuous velvety blacks, reds and golds. Let's head down to the board and take a closer look at the box. So look away for 2 minutes if you haven't opened yours yet and you still want to be surprised, but I am going to show you all of the things that you get inside this gorgeous MMBB for September. Greetings from the Overlook Hotel. So I absolutely love this film. If you've never seen it and you've got a strong constitution, it's a good one. Let's have a gander at what you get in the box. You've got the twins. Come play with us, bead mix. Have you seen these beads before? Beautiful metallics, and there's faux pearls, there's glass, there's frilly, there's two-tone, absolutely beautiful, a whole variety of shapes and forms. That's just one of the bead mixes. Another is all work and no play in the Colorado Lounge. Look at those oranges, absolutely gorgeous ceramics again, and check this out. What a gorgeous, gorgeous charm that is. Huge beads, smaller beads, textured beads. It's a variety to long for. Room 237. Now there's a creepy one, but look at this non-creepy mix. Again, beautiful, beautiful beads and colours. Lots of ceramics in the bead mix this month. Absolutely gorgeous. Love ceramic beads. We've also got shell with these amazing geometric designs and colourways. We have got metallics in the gold room. Now there's a couple of different shapes and forms here that can be used as connectors or simply as earring findings. We have got elevator full of red. Now my eye was drawn to this one straight away. I love the combination of black and red, and I do love a little bit of gold to go with. We're going to be working primarily with this mix today. Not only that, but you get 2 chains and acres and oodles of chains at this beautiful Art Deco inspired 1921 gold and black. It's beautiful, not to mention super useful. We're working with that today. You also get this fabric chain. Haven't seen one of these in a while. So comfortable to wear. That's called Sidewinder Round. I've added my long drop Art Deco inspired necklace to the fabric chain that came in the MMBB for September. You could use whichever chain you fancy. Let's just pop that up in the corner. You can of course use fewer links of that gorgeous gold and black chain if you want a slightly shorter drop, or you can simply make a larger loop at this point and forego using that chain at all. I'm going to recreate the design, and these are the beads that we'll be using. So I have got 4 of the larger red rondelles, 4 of the smaller red two-tone bicones. I've got 5 of the tiny daisy spacers and 3 of the large saucer spacers. Huge black checkerboard faceted glass bead here, and then a hexagonal black with step facets as well. I've chosen to work with 5 links from that gorgeous 1921 chain, but you could use fewer or more if you prefer. So let's just pop that up in the top and get moving. In terms of wire, today I have 16 inches of 1mm 18 gauge round wire. I'm working with a medium temper copper, and I'm just going to give that a quick warm through. So around about 15 to 16 inches will be adequate for the main segment of the design. Giving that a warm through will allow the wire to set a little bit firmer later, but to begin with it's just a nice way to ensure that it's good and smooth to work with. Now we're looking for a round form that's going to be probably about 1/3 again the size of that large beautiful black faceted bead that we're using, and we're going to ignore the first 4 inches of wire, and then we're going to turn a round form. I'm using a pot of test strips to give me a round form which will be just slightly larger by about 1/3 on top of that gorgeous checkerboard faceted black bead. So I'm pretty sure that I need slightly more wire over the end there. If that happens to you, just pop it back on the round form, continue wrapping around, and then free off the short end. So it was very, very quick just to manoeuvre that around. And what we're going to do before we go any further, I've got a good sort of 3 inches of wire on the short end at the moment, and just to make my life easier for later, I'm going to very gently, I'm not pressing too hard, but I'm just work hardening the circular form. And the reason I'm doing that is once we put the beads on, we won't be able to do any more to this. Now you can very, very gently hammer on a block if you have a hammer and block, but make sure that you're just going around this section. So on the short end we're going to add on the chosen beads. If I just pop them over to one side, we'll get them threaded on. So I'm going for one of the opaque red faceted rondelles, then one of the gold spacers, and then just rotating between those two until you have your chosen beads in order. Now these all fit on the 18 gauge round wire really beautifully, so they're a joy to work with because you know that that will move in wear, and if you need to just move that around whilst you're wearing it, that's also a win. So right up at the top, what we're going to do on the long end of the wire there is turn a right angle up and away. Doesn't matter if it moves around in the process of making, we're not going to overly worry about this. What we're going to do now is take the short end and rotate that 1.5 times around the upright. Now I've made quite a soft angle there. I think that needs to be just a little bit firmer. So what I will do is take that past the point where it's a right angle and then very carefully bring that back again. And you'll see that that's just sharpened that angle up slightly. If I flip the design over so the short wire is facing away from me, it doesn't really matter if it's over or under, you'll just rotate in the opposite direction. Now if I show you this from above, I'm going to grip that wire at the point it passes over the angle we've just created, push that all the way around. So we're kind of making a little bit of a hook, allowing that to sit. If you need to, you can just pop your bead, your large faceted bead in to check that it fits. That fits beautifully. So I'm just going to pinch this by hand for now to make sure that that's good and strong and I'm happy with it. I like where that's sitting, so a very, very gentle little pinch just here. What we're going to do now is to support the round form as I bring that tail of wire over one more time. So you've got 1.5 rotations on that wire, going around the upright that will become the neck of the design. Just giving that a quick smooth to make sure it's good and straight, and then just tightening that down slightly. So the next thing we're going to need to do is just turn it upside down for the moment. So it's facing away from me, and then I'm going to warm through this last little tail section. Now it's kind of important to get that to be your friend. Actually, can you see at the moment that that's not quite straight? So what I want to do is just draw that over so that it's centralised. That's a little bit better. What we're going to do now is pinch semi-softly just on the side where that rotation around the core has come, and I'm going to draw that wire down. So I want that to go kind of straight across the middle. You can do this mathematically if you need to. I'm not going to because maths is not my friend. So let's pop that down on the board and grab our large beautiful kite facet or squares, whichever way you want to think of it, and then we're going to thread that large bead on. So you can see my wire is just slightly elevated over the circular form. What we're going to do now is estimate around about just past 1 inch. So you can measure if you prefer, but it needs to be just ever so slightly longer than 1 inch. So I've not wasted a huge amount, but it also gives us an opportunity to get a nice flush cut on the end. What we're going to do now is to very gently protect the large black bead. Start rotating that wire back towards us to get us the beginning of a round form. Turning that sideways, you can see that starting to create, and then we're going to make a spiral. So we're looking to create a reasonably tidy spiral. Doesn't need to be perfect. And we're looking to softly protect our bead from any damage caused by our heavy-handed pliers. My pliers can be a little bit heavy-handed from time to time. So we've got almost a double spiral there, which is about what 1 inch of 18 gauge will give you. Now for the next part, what we're going to do is to bring the wire forwards. What we want to do here is to protect our bead. Now I just pop my thumbnail over. I'm going to twist that coil slightly and then bring that coil up using my nail to protect the bead. Push it very, very gently, and what that does is it gives us a little bit of a gap between the exit point from the bead and where that wire just slightly comes forwards. The reason for doing that is we don't want to put any pressure on the bead, so then we can very gently just push that forwards to support the bead in position, and then you can set that down so that it sits neatly inside your circular form. It's a really lovely colourway to work with. I've made one with silver colour wire here, and I'm working on the board today with copper colour wire because it shows up really nicely on the camera, and it also gives you options to choose which is your favourite. So let's now add in our next bead. So I'm just going to draw the design out of the way, and then we're going to switch between each of the daisies and those little bicones I missed. So daisy spacer, then a bicone, then a daisy spacer, then a bicone. And these are quite diminutive beads, but yet you'll still see that they do move onto that 18 gauge wire quite nicely. What I would say, if any are just being a little bit taut, be gentle and ensure that your wire is nice and straight and smooth, and it will give you less issues. I absolutely adore Jessie James beads for the fact that the bead holes, the bead apertures are really generous. Something that you struggle with genuine gemstones, quite often the bead holes are really tiny. So let's just very, very gently move that cascade down. Now, if this is all you wanted to do and you don't want to have the chain, instead of making a small loop at this stage, you can make a large loop, treat it as a bail, and add it directly onto your favourite chain. If you want to repeat the piece that I am making as it is here, let's just give that a tiny squish to get it to sit down nicely. What we're going to do is to bring that wire forwards and upwards, like so. And I've allowed a gap between the last bead and that angle change. And that's so that I can create a wrapped loop at this stage. So the first thing I'll do, again, if you want this to be your bail, you'll need to make a much larger loop. I'm going for a teeny loop. So I'm going to turn that around on my pliers to get me that looped form, and then I'm going to grab in my section of chain. You don't have to have the chain, you can have shorter or a longer chain if you prefer. We're just going to get that wire to go through the loop at the end and then draw it all the way down. So that's quite a snug fit, which is good because it means it won't flop around too much in wear. What I could have done is gone for a much shorter tail on the wire, and that would have been much, much easier. So what I am going to do is actually just trim that away to around about 1 inch again, make my life significantly easier, and give that a little squish to give it some protection. Pop it back on the wire, and you'll see with a shorter length of wire to work with, it does move that little bit easier. What we're going to do then is a very simple wrapped loop. Now, if you struggle with wrapped loops, just take your time. Let's squish that loop so that it sits flat, but again, we're not squishing anywhere the wire crosses over, or we're also being careful of the loop on the chain. We're going to take the wire all the way around. That's 1, 2, and we're going to fill that gap until it's neat and tidy. Now, because this pendant has the coil on one side and then it's just a bead on the other side, you can choose which is your favourite surface. You might like to see just the bead suspended, or you might prefer to have that little loop, that little coil showing at the bottom. Whichever you prefer, just trim that wire on the rear side, get rid of the scrap, and then close that segment down. So in order to make an extension up at the top, and again, you don't have to have 5 links, you can have as few or as many as you like. This is the wire I just cut away. So what we're going to do is some wrapped loops again into the loop at the top of the chain, and then to create a large oversized bail to fit on whatever hanging chain you desire. So let's just get that tidy back into position. Obviously, because I've managed to catch it with the wire. So first thing we're going to do is make a slightly smaller wrapped loop down at the base, exactly the same technique as I've just showed to you. So create that loop shape. If it doesn't quite go to plan, you can modify that if you need to, just opening that loop out slightly, and let's pop that onto the link in the chain, draw that all the way down, and give that a very very gentle hold whilst we wrap the tail around. Now what I would say is that having the loops on your chain accessible is a great thing. You don't always get that in chain. So this is currently, if my loops, if my sections of chain are sitting flat, this is currently the rear side. So I'm going to ensure that I bring that wire around one more time. So little attention to detail like that goes a long way. And then I'm going to smooth the wire through, add on that larger hexagonal chain. It's not a chain, sorry, bead, large hexagonal bead. And then we're going to create a small gap, bring that wire forwards again, grab your round nose or your bail makers and create an oversized bail up at the top. Now this is a technique which I use all the time. So I'm just supporting that round form with my pliers, but I'm making a much larger round form. So if you don't always have the correct tool to hand, you can always use a pencil, or you can just estimate and get that to sit exactly how you need it to by hand. Warming your wire through will always give you a little extra help. Let's make those last two twists and make sure that we trim this on the rear side. So I need to go around one more time. Give that a little bit of a tighten up to get that super neat. Let's have a look. So that's the rear side just there. I need to bring that over one more time. And then trim away to the back of the design. 1 second, we'll just tidy that up and get that to sit down nice and neat and flat. Always being careful of your bead, making sure you're not putting too much pressure on it. Let's drop this baby down onto the board. And then you've got 2 Overlook Hotel pendants in different colourways. Which is your favourite, the copper or the silver?